Well, this is a good moment to talk about built-in functions. So there are two really useful places to look at the built-in functions lists of PHP. And this is very similar to the notion that there are sort of built-in functions in Excel. The function references at the official PHP site are here, and they're really detailed and really useful. And you can see there's all sorts of functions that you can include in your programs to do work. You might find that the references at the W3 School site are a bit easier to understand. They're organized into categories. So, for example, let's look at the string ones. And you can see there are loads and loads of different string functions. So what I'll do is I'll just demonstrate a few of these. Let's start off with, I think one of them's called explode. And if we just look at the reference here, see if we can understand what it's actually saying. It says it breaks a string into an array. So what we do is we have, and often if you scroll down, you'll find a nice little example. So here you can see it says we've got a string, and the string has got items in it separated by a comma. And what we can do is we can use explode to take the string and turn it into an array, and every item will be split at whatever character we suggest. So it's a comma, for example. So let's have a go at it. So I'm going to delete all of that, and that, and that. So we've got a nice string here. Let's use this one actually. Let's use my values. Okay, you can see my values. It's got all these items separated by a comma. So let's go, for example, my data. So I'm just going to make up a variable called my data, and we go explode. And what we have to do is we have to say what it is exactly that we're going to split on. So we're going to split on the comma, and then we supply the thing that we're actually going to split, which in this instance would be my values. So what that will do is that will take our string and it will turn it into an array where every item comes from that split, which is indicated by the comma. So with a bit of luck, we should now be able to go print my data. And let's find the third item. Let's print it out. So if I save that, back over to here, click refresh, 23. Now remember, the items are numbered from 0. So item, that's 0, 1, 2, 3. That's that item from there. And if I went item 2 and save it and click refresh, there we go, just like that. That's nice, because what we could do, for example, you could take a sentence and you could split it on the spaces. So here's my sentence. What we're going to do is we're going to pour that into an array, and each item will be a word from here. So let's try this out. Let's pick the fourth one, for example. Save it. It's a dash. Let's try the fifth item. It's the word it's. 6, 7. Let's try the seventh item. Collection. So really nice, easy way to actually enable us to actually process a bunch of items. So for example, what you could do, you could have a form which collects lots of items from a user where the items are separated with a comma, and then you could use explode to create an array of those items so that you can do some work on them, something like that. Now there's an equivalent function called implode. What implode does, so again, let's have a look, let's look it up. If I go back and find implode, there it is. Implode returns, it takes an array of items and turns them into a string. So for example, what I could do is I could implode my colors. Now my data is going to be a string now. So what if I want to use the function implode? Implode needs two things to do its work. It needs two, these are called arguments, two arguments. The first thing is, what are we going to do with each of the items? How are we going to combine them? What we're going to do is we're going to combine them with a space between them. So you could put anything in that gap, like a comma or whatever you want. And then what is it that what is it that the function's actually working on? Which bit of data? Well, it's going to work on my colors. So it's going to combine all of these array items into a string with a space between them. So let's save it. Let's run it again. And there we go. We've got a string, which is all those items with a space separated between them. You know, we could do it so they're printed out with a comma instead. Just like that. Now, if we want to know how many items there are in an array, we use count. As we saw a little bit earlier on, if you want to know how many items there are in a string, we use string length. So string length is a function, and what it does is it takes a string, so for example, my words, and it will tell us how many items there are in there. Let's run it. And you can see it's telling us that that string there has 58 characters inside. There it is, just on the end. I haven't laid it out properly because I haven't put any paragraph tags in, but you can see 58 is still printing my data out from the previous example. Let's have a look at a few other things then. If we go back to here, and there's one, for example, called strip tags. There it is. And so what this will do is it will remove all the HTML from a string. So let's try that out. Let's go strip tags. So strip tags is a function. We pass it some data for it to work on. In other words, my words. And let's take this out now. We don't need that. So let's run it. And you can see, well, you can't actually see that because it's not actually there. Let's go into the source. You can see it's actually removed the paragraph tags from the string. They're no longer there. Now that's really useful because, for example, you might be grabbing some data from a website or some data file that's got HTML in it. Imagine some data that was actually in a table, and you could just actually remove all the table tags that were in there, all the HTML tags that were inside. Let's do just one or two others of these. So we could, for example, there's a string to lower, string to upper, turns it all into uppercase, turns it all into lowercase. Let's try string to upper. So I'm just going to copy that, stick it in here, save it, run it again. There you go. Now I'm shouting about the fact that this is a string.